Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Little Potomac River update. Tidal Potomac. I know, that seems strange for me because I've been fishing for smallmouth so much. But Tidal River, man, it's April. It is April. So you know that means a largemouth going to be chewing, right? So one thing I want to talk about really quickly is, because I had a whole bunch of people reach out. I always know I always know what time of year it is. I always know because I get more people reach out to me this time of year for the Potomac River, large part because there's a lot of events, boater series, a lot of the club battle series, all that stuff starts starting up. There's a lot of club events on the Potomac River. Also a lot of kayak events. So this year, no kayak best fishing event on the Potomac this year for like the first time I think in probably 4 or 5 years. Because KBF usually does 2 days, but obviously there's some other club series. So I always know when there's events get ready to pop up because my inbox I always get a ton of messages. And I do have a playlist on YouTube, obviously, which has a bunch of different Potomac videos. But it's been really great. But I mean, again, when I'm a and I'm out with someone, like, for example, today, out with someone on their boat, I'm not shooting video. Because it's just to me, it's respectful for them. Mike's got a tournament coming up, and all that is the way it goes. It's kind of like the unspoken rule, right? It's like he's got an event coming up. There are people who've got events coming up. But one thing we talked about, I had a conversation about this morning was these events, man, like just kind of sometimes exclude water that legit, man, holds fish. Predominantly, I'm talking about DC. Like, I'm talking about, like, a lot of guys will launch out of different boat ramps on either side, the Virginia side or the Maryland side. Most guys will go set. Most guys will go down. And years and years ago, like a decade ago or even 20 years ago, a lot of bags got caught up in DC, right? We know what's happened up that way really since they redid the bridge. Grass and all the environmental factors, ecological factors, the barges, all that stuff directly impacted the grass, which then directly impacted the fishery, which then so we know. But the reality of it is it's April, okay? And the warmest water in the river right now is up in DC, okay? Because all that warm water gets pumped into the DC. So that turns on first. So if you got like an early April event, now I don't understand if it's June, July, or August, summer. We all know the way summer is, man. Summer's a beast on the Potomac, with the humidity and everything. But if you're early April, like, that's where the fish are. Like, that doesn't mean to say, like, I know, and I talk to people, it's like I had the conversation with Mike today, like, it's like, I don't even know why they call them Potomac River events a lot of times, because a lot of times I might as well just call them Matt. Might as well just call them Matt event. Mattawoman Creek event. Because it's not like you're fishing the river. Like, they have people hold an event, and there's, people hold an event for 30 boats or 30 kayaks, and freaking 70% of them are in Mattawoman Creek. So just call it Mattawoman Creek event. Don't call it the Potomac River, because then nobody getting out in the channel. Nobody's leaving the creek. They're not going into the Potomac River. They're fishing the creek. And there's nothing wrong with the Mat. The Mat is one of the most formidable known areas historically holding bass. My argument has always been like they make they extend the boundaries for like some of these Potomac River events to like Port Tobacco or like all the way down in Nanjeboy where nobody fishes anymore. Like, maybe go like once a year or whatever like that, but like they're just not in play. Like nobody's going down going all, because over the years the bass populations reportedly have declined in those areas, right? And so people are fishing the Chick or they're fishing Mattawoman on the Maryland side predominantly. And that may go up to Piscat, they may go up, Broad, they may go up some people depending on where they're launching from. Like I like to launch from Marshall Hall and hit it all up that way. Some guys will launch from Leesylvania on the Virginia side, Smallwood on the Maryland side, which is right in the creek, right? And so that long run, maybe a long run, like if you're a kayak guy, you're probably not going to, But again, most of the kayak tournaments don't even put it in DC. The spoils isn't even in play. Areas that do hold fish. I don't think like places like Mount Vernon and Dogue and all that stuff's not even in play. Like for some of these events, and that's kind of where like the fish are suspended. And And so it's just been really, really interesting. We're going to go back out tomorrow again because the weather, we're 80 degrees, man. We haven't been 80 degrees, I don't think, all year long. But we're going to be 80 degrees this week. So it's a perfect opportunity. That bite's going to start turning on. And one of the things I always talk about in my videos for a lot of people is like the other behavioral characteristics of what's independent of the actual, your targeted species. In this case would be largemouth bass. There's no smallmouth really below DC, okay? That's a rare event, all right? They're pretty much the upper Potomac and in and around DC. But for largemouth, and that's a shad run, man. Like the shad are running up. They've been running up now for a week or two, okay? And bass are coming in and staging up. We'll say when they get that high tide rolls in, okay, that's where predominantly we did the damage, okay? And that's where people need to be looking the next week or two, okay? Because the shads are still going to be really, really active, running up. And so when that happens, you're going to have a lot of freaking largemouth bass, feeding up on that stuff. And there are definitely areas in that system. That if you follow my channel, you know where I'm talking about. You just got to do your own research on my channel. That where those shad run. And I this week for me being in April, I would put that up against Mattawoman at 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And so we looked. Mike looked. We looked. We probably would have been in the top 15, top 16 of a BFL event held in the Potomac River this morning, based on what was caught. And so that's the barometer. He's prepping for a bigger event. We tried some things. Another thing I'm going to say, another little observation about the Potomac. Some of you guys may agree or disagree. Some of you guys may agree. I'm telling you what, the chatterbait has completely fallen off a cliff in terms of its effectiveness on the Potomac River. I personally think, and I don't fish the Potomac, Tidal Potomac, nearly as much as I did years ago, okay? Because like I said, I pretty much prefer to fish for smallmouth. And I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not saying you can't catch largemouth bass with the chatterbait on the Potomac River. Some guys are gonna, okay? It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying compared to where it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and 5 years ago, it's not nearly to the level. It is much, much harder to catch a 3.5 pound largemouth bass on the Potomac River than it has been in a decade right now, the last 2 years. I think they're conditioned to that chatterbait. I just do. I think that's the only explanation. I do believe in bass behavior, and I do believe they do get conditioned to a lot of these baits. I've seen it on shallower water, in the upper Potomac, the Monocacy, the Allegheny, the Susquehanna, the Juniata, where the whopper plopper, it has its place, but it's not nearly as effective as it once was. And I just think that bass just get conditioned to these things over a certain period of time, and I think that's what's happening. Today, not a single bass on a chatterbait. Mike hammered that thing. I'm not a big chatterbait guy, but I gave it a go. He hammered it for nothing, okay? And I'm going to show you two baits, okay? Not giving anything. This is my stuff. I'm not going to give you Mike's baits away. What Mike bait caught his, his 14, I think 14 and a half pounds, but I'm going to tell you what worked for me, okay? And I'm a big proponent of the lipless crankbait this time of year, okay? Not only for smallmouth, but for largemouth. And so my two baits of choice today, woo, that's going to hit me. That's going to hurt. Was I still like a little flash, okay? Okay, chartreuse chrome, okay, little red on the bottom, awesome bait. I threw this, threw it sibling, same rattle, just all white, okay, remember, thinking shad, okay, shad run, okay, love that. The other one is really good. My biggest fish came off a crankbait, which is this one right here. See the same pattern here we're talking about, guys? So we're talking about perch, yellow perch, perchy color stuff in the upper Potomac. Same in the upper bay. This is a perfect. I know some guys are fishing the sass this weekend in an event. There's your bait right there. There's your crankbait, boys, right there. And then the other one I caught some of the smaller fish on. They were probably like 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. Guess she don't want to come up. Good night. What the hell is she doing? There we go. Right there. Lipless, baby. Lipless. Another next question I'm going to get, because I always get it, is line. Of course, if I'm throwing crankbaits, I'm using P-line tactical fluorocarbon. Okay? That's what I'm using. P-line tactical fluorocarbon if I'm throwing lipless crankbaits, if I'm throwing square bill crankbaits, any of that stuff. Now, if I'm throwing a jerkbait, I did not throw the jerkbait today because I didn't like the conditions they're set up. But if I'm going to throw the jerkbait, I'm going to throw the P-line, but I'm going to throw the topwater copolymer. Okay? Abrasion resistant, awesome buoyancy, because the castability of that line is freaking phenomenal. Okay? So you can cast that jerkbait a lot further than you can a lot of the other lines on the market. My experience. Obviously, people can differ, have their own opinions, because it matters what rod you're using, it matters what your setup is. Okay? But I'm just saying, for me, I use the P-line topwater if I'm throwing a jerkbait. But if I'm working crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, diving crankbaits, square bill crankbaits, all that, I'm throwing P-line tactical fluorocarbon. Okay? That's all I did today. Couple hours out, river to river, okay, into the bay. Okay, you know where I'm talking about. Bass are suspended. Okay, they're not moving up shallow. They are still hung to docks, dock pilings, and docks. Hit those up, but they're suspended out in deep water, 10 to 12 feet of water. Okay, 8 to 12. But if you can find 10 to 12 feet of water, that's still where they are. Okay, we're just at this 80-degree mark. We're gonna get the water's gonna warm up a little bit. We got the full moon coming up. Okay, I guess in 2 weeks. I guess the next 2 weeks, this is what we're gonna see on the Potomac River. Okay, so I'll probably do a little bit more video tomorrow. I'm gonna double dip tomorrow. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the Potomac River tomorrow, and from the Virginia side, and then I am going to dip out lunchtime, grab something to eat, and then I'm going to hit the upper Potomac for some smallmouth, because the Potomac River is starting to come back down again after these high water events. So it's always a good time. You smallmouth guys out there that follow me. Rising water, awesome window. The next window is after it's crested. It's fallen about 2 or 3 feet, and then it begins to continue fall again. That's another great window for smallmouth. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So this week, man, this is the week. 80 degrees, sun out, no rain. This is a perfect time to be out there fishing. Doesn't matter whether you're fishing on the Tidal Potomac or you're fishing on the upper Potomac, because they're chewing.